The morning light came through the shutters like any other day. Warm, quiet, familiar. I stood in front of the marble kitchen island, coffee in hand, barefoot on the cold tile. Houston heat hadn't yet crept in, and for a moment it almost felt like peace. Raymond's car keys were still on the counter. He was upstairs, likely still in bed. I used to think that meant comfort, security, love. Now it just meant delay. I glanced around the kitchen, the gleaming appliances, the overpriced juicer I never used, the bouquet of lilies I'd bought myself last week. He hadn't noticed them, or maybe he had, and didn't care. Lately, that line blurred. They say you know when something starts to rot, not because it smells, but because it stops growing. That was us. Raymond, once charming, now mostly indifferent. He didn't yell, didn't throw punches, but his words, they could cut bone. Even my parents, especially my mother, seemed to adore him more than they ever praised me. Elva, my older sister, golden child with her charity galas and well-behaved children, always drew their pride. I told myself I just had to wait, be patient, earn my place. They'd see eventually. Dinner was late that night, a casual gathering at home. Raymond poured his usual whiskey, half listening to the market report on TV, while Dad and Mom settled in. I served steak, medium rare, his favorite, but he barely looked at it. Raymond swirled his drink. "Wanda's little stock game still going?" he asked, eyes not even meeting mine. My father chuckled. "She's got ambition, I'll give her that." Raymond smirked. "Without me, she wouldn't last a week." They laughed, lightly, carelessly, like I wasn't sitting right there, like I wasn't the punchline to some tired joke. My mother said nothing, just picked at her salad. I smiled, not because it was funny, but because I wanted to remember every word, every smirk. I sat through the rest of that meal like a ghost wearing pearls. Quiet on the outside, roaring on the inside. "I'll remember this night," I whispered to myself in bed, while Raymond snored beside me, blissfully unaware. 3 days later, I came home early. Raymond was at the club. I walked into the sound of my parents' voices on speakerphone, clear, unaware of my presence. They were on the line with Elva, discussing the family business. "She won't notice," my father said. "We already moved the shares. It's better this way." My mother agreed. "She's too emotional. Wanda doesn't think long-term." Emotional. That word, that curse they love to pin on me, that excuse for cutting me out of decisions I helped build. I stood there, hands shaking, not out of surprise, but out of recognition. They hadn't protected me, they'd erased me. That night, I confronted my father at his house. He poured himself a drink and barely looked up. "Sweetheart," he said, "you have Raymond. That's more than security. That's stability." I wasn't angry. I was numb. I nodded once, turned, and left without another word. If they saw gratitude as silence, then they'd get a lifetime of it. Back home, I opened the old cedar box my grandmother had given me. Inside was the silk handkerchief she'd embroidered for me at 12. "You matter," it read, thread barely holding after all these years. She used to wipe my tears with it when my mother forgot I had feelings. I remembered her voice. "Stay quiet, Wanda. Watch everything, then decide." So I folded the cloth, tucked it into my purse, and sat still for hours. Not because I was lost, but because I was finally starting to see. Raymond came home drunk that night. Loosened tie, arrogant grin. "Still playing businesswoman?" he asked, grabbing another drink. "Let's face it, sweetheart, you're not built for life without me." He turned away, laughing at his own cruelty. I stood, walked into the kitchen, and picked up the car keys. Then I placed both the keys and the house fob onto the marble counter. The silence that followed was the loudest moment of our marriage. He looked back, confused. "What are you doing?" I didn't raise my voice, didn't cry. I met his eyes and said, "Let's find out." Then I left. No bags, no speech. Just the clothes on my back and my grandmother's handkerchief in my purse. The driveway was dark. The car's headlights cut through the quiet neighborhood like a knife. I gripped the wheel harder than I needed to, but I didn't care. I wasn't afraid. I was awake. They think I'm nothing without them. I said aloud. They'll soon learn who I am. The night pressed close, but I kept driving. Toward what, I didn't know, but anything was better than the lie I'd been living. I woke up to a kind of silence I hadn't heard in years, not the muffled quiet of wealth, where staff tiptoe and machines hum in the background, but real, hollow stillness, the kind that sits on your chest. The curtains in the hotel room barely filtered the early morning sun. I lay still, staring at the popcorn ceiling. For the first time, there was no Raymond groaning about his schedule, no espresso machine hissing in the kitchen, no heels of our housekeeper pacing down the hallway. Just me. I sat up slowly. The sheets smelled like bleach and something faintly floral. It felt strange, and also clean, free. My phone, face down on the nightstand, buzzed like it had something urgent to say. I flipped it over. 10 missed calls. 3 from Raymond. 4 from my father. 1 from Elva. And 2 from unknown numbers I could only guess. I let them sit. I didn't want their voices in my head. Not yet. I made hotel coffee. Bitter. Too hot. No cream. Still, I drank it all. Freedom, I realized, isn't glamorous. It doesn't come with a soundtrack or applause. It tastes like burnt toast and oversteeped bitterness. But it's mine now. I pulled my laptop from my bag, sat on the edge of the bed, and opened up the spreadsheet I hadn't touched in months. Trading records, market notes, quiet little risks I'd taken over the years when no one thought I was serious enough to bother. I scrolled through, half out of habit, half out of disbelief. One stock, small, tech-focused, one I'd researched late at night while Raymond snored beside me, had jumped, significantly. I blinked, double-checked, then exhaled, slowly. This wasn't life-changing money, not yet, but it was proof. Proof I wasn't the fool they thought I was. I made a withdrawal, just enough to breathe. Then I scheduled a consultation with a financial advisor I remembered from a seminar I once snuck into without telling anyone. Her name was Jeanine. She'd been kind. Real. The buzz returned. Another text. It was my mother. You've embarrassed your father. This isn't the way we handle things. Come home. No. Are you okay? No concern. Just family reputation. I debated ignoring it, but something in me needed to reply. Instead, I called Elva. She picked up fast, like she'd been waiting. I hope you're satisfied, she said. No hello. Dad's furious. Raymond's calling everyone. This is a mess, Wanda. Elva, I said, calm. Why am I not seeing my name on the trust records anymore? There was a pause. Well, it's complicated. We thought you weren't focused enough. It's temporary. You're making things worse. So they'd already done it. They hadn't just planned it. They'd finished it. Elva, I said again. If reputation means obedience, I'm fine being the family embarrassment. I hung up before she could lecture me about gratitude or duty or whatever else kept her leash tight. By mid-afternoon, I was searching apartments. Nothing fancy. I didn't need fancy anymore, but when I went to apply, the agent raised an eyebrow. Your credit's frozen, she said, and your joint account's restricted. Do you want to try another card? I stood there, feeling heat rise in my face. I wasn't embarrassed. I was furious. I called the bank, waded through hold music, got transferred, explained my name, my status, my situation. The voice on the other end stayed flat, corporate. Due to a joint ownership structure, certain actions require spousal authorization. We recommend speaking with your husband to resolve this. I almost laughed. Back in the hotel lobby, I asked the concierge to help print a few documents. She was maybe in her 20s, soft-spoken. Didn't ask questions, just handed me the papers with a smile. Thanks, I said, my voice rougher than I meant it. She smiled wider. That small kindness held me together more than she'll ever know. Back upstairs, I found an old email from a man named Cal. We'd crossed paths at a conference years ago. He'd complimented my analysis during a breakout session, said I had an instinct he rarely saw. He'd sent a message just a week ago. Wanda, if you ever want to consult freelance, I've got a project you'd be perfect for. Let me know. I stared at the screen. I wasn't sure if I could still do it. Not really. But I replied, Let's talk. I'm available. As soon as I hit send, I whispered to the empty room. I thought I forgot how to be useful. Turns out, I was just used to being unused. That night, I was plugging my phone in when I noticed an old file in my voice memos. I didn't remember recording it. Probably the home system had picked it up from one of Raymond's calls. I pressed play. His voice filled the room. Smug. I could picture him, whiskey in hand. She won't find out until it's too late. Silence. Then laughter. Then nothing. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the screen. That familiar throb in my throat returned. Not fear, something else. I whispered into the dim room. Too late for what? The drive to Charleston felt longer than it was. I kept the windows up, the radio off, nothing but the steady hum of tires on the highway and the weight of what I was about to do pressing down on my chest. The co-working space was tucked into an older building downtown, the kind with exposed brick walls and freshly polished floors trying hard to look casual. I parked in the back, walked up 2 flights, and waited outside the conference room. I was early. On purpose. The room itself was sterile. Neutral walls. 1 long table. A dry erase board no one had touched. It didn't feel warm or welcoming, but it felt safe. I took a seat near the window, unzipped my laptop bag, and pulled out my notes. Inside my purse, I touched the silk handkerchief without pulling it out. Just knowing it was there gave me something solid. If I had stayed silent, I whispered to myself, they'd never see me. Now, I stepped forward. The door opened. Tansy Wren walked in, her heels clicking once, then softening against the carpet. She didn't waste time. She nodded at me, sat across the table, and slid a folder forward without saying a word. I opened it. Minutes from a board meeting. My name, crossed out, shares, transferred. Date, 3 months ago. My mother's signature sealed it all. I didn't say anything at first. I just stared at the page, then flipped it, then back again, as if maybe I'd read it wrong. But it was all there. My removal wasn't an idea. It had already happened. Quietly. Surgically. They did this behind my back, I said. Tansy nodded. They used a clause tied to emotional stability, buried in the original trust language. They needed 2 signatures. Your mother and Raymond gave them. They didn't even need my father? They bypassed him. I felt it then, not the surface anger, but something deeper. Violation. I had been erased from the very table I helped build. No warning, no fight. Just gone. Tansy leaned forward. There's a way back. It won't be clean, but it's there. We'll need records, financial trails, and time. I closed the folder gently. My fingers shook, but I wouldn't let it show. I stood, nodded once, and thanked her. That evening, I walked into my father's study. The old lamp in the corner cast everything in amber light. Books lined the shelves, history, finance, philosophy. I'd grown up at his feet in that room, thinking someday he'd say I belonged in the same space. He looked up when I entered, not surprised. Wanda? I dropped the folder on his desk. Did you sign this? I asked, voice even. Did you watch them erase me? He looked down, then back at me. It was a decision we all made. For stability. I stared at him. You mean for control? He didn't flinch, but his eyes told me everything. There was guilt, buried behind the practiced calm. I'd seen that flicker before, when I was little, when he'd punish me too harshly and pretend it was for my own good. Raymond convinced them it was better this way, he said. So you let him speak for me? He didn't answer, just turned away. I left the folder. I didn't slam the door, just walked out, quiet, firm. Back in my apartment, I couldn't sit still. I opened my laptop, dug into databases, searched corporate filings, old documents. I made phone calls, cold, professional. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to track every signature, every transaction. They'd removed me by paper. I'd return the favor, with interest. By midnight, I had spreadsheets open, maps of connections drawn in ink across printer paper. I wasn't hunting feelings anymore. I was hunting leverage, I drafted subpoenas. I outlined a press strategy. I didn't tell Tansy yet. I needed the element of surprise, and still, the doubt crept in. If I fight them now, I thought, can I survive the backlash? I reached into my purse again, pulled out the handkerchief. You matter. I took a breath. Then I fight. I scheduled a press release for the following Thursday. At 2:13 a.m., my phone lit up. Breaking news. Anonymous leak suggests major family board scandal. Documents to surface tomorrow. I stared at the headline. Did Tansy leak it? Or someone else? I whispered, not to anyone in particular. They just opened the war front I didn't ask for. I woke just before the sun cracked over the skyline, the kind of morning where the air feels too still. I lay there, not quite ready to get up, not quite able to stay down. My phone was still on the nightstand, the screen black but heavy with last night's echo. I tapped it. The voice memo played again, Raymond's voice, smug, cold, like a man who already counted me out. She won't find out until it's too late. I sat up. No more hiding from what I already knew. I walked to the kitchenette, brewed the cheapest coffee I could find in the cabinet. The smell was harsh, nothing like the staff-made blends I was used to. I took a sip, bitter, grounding. I pulled up my bank app while the cup warmed my hands. Frozen, all joint accounts, locked down. He had moved first, and he made sure I'd feel it. By mid-morning, I had a list of apartment viewings lined up. I walked from one to the next with a clipboard in hand, dressed neatly, but not expensively. The second landlord smiled until she ran my credit. Her smile faded. Your score's impacted by some recent freezes, she said. Too polite to say the word red flag. I asked, what if I co-sign under a business account? She shook her head. Without both names, it's a risk we can't take. She handed the application back, unsigned. No apology. Outside, I stood by my car for a long moment, jaw clenched. Not sadness, not even anger anymore, just this low, stubborn fire in my gut. I opened a new credit application. Just my name, my income, my ID. It wasn't much, but it was mine. That afternoon, I took a call from Raymond. His face appeared on the screen like a ghost from another life. I answered, quiet, still. You look tired, he said, sipping something in crystal. Guess hotel life isn't the upgrade you imagined. I didn't flinch. He leaned in, voice syrupy. Everything you ever had, this life, the house, the car, was a gift. A privilege I extended while you behaved. I said nothing, just tapped the record button under the table. You wouldn't have been approved for this life on your own, Wanda. You know that. You were comfortable. That was the deal. I ended the call without a word, saved the file. That line alone was enough for 3 different angles of legal leverage. Later that evening, I made another call. My father answered on the 3rd ring, his voice more tired than usual. I'm not calling to fight, I said. He paused. Then why are you calling? Because I want to understand. He was quiet for a beat. Then, maybe you never truly belonged in that role. In the business. It wasn't personal. I felt the cut before he finished the sentence. He added, we all do what we think is best for the family. So you thought erasing me was best? He sighed. No one wanted to erase you. We needed stability. Right, I said, and silence brings stability. I let him keep talking. I let him drift into half apologies, half justifications. I recorded the call. His words were soft, but the undertone was clear. Regret wrapped in cowardice. Back in my apartment, I pulled together the threads, the board minutes from Tansy, the frozen accounts, Raymond's call, my father's excuses. I opened a file on my laptop, labeled it War. I called a woman named Della, an old client burned by Elva's firm years back. She remembered me. She also remembered the stunt Elva pulled with her rebranding campaign that nearly tanked Della's nonprofit. You got anything you want to leak? I asked. Plenty. We made plans. I started working on a press release draft that night. Something sharp, controlled, enough to rattle the cage without blowing it off the hinges. By the time I stopped typing, the apartment was quiet again. Too quiet. Then my inbox dinged. Subject line, you were warned. No sender listed. I opened it. The message was short. Back off. Or say goodbye to your accounts and your image. I sat back, hand still on the mouse. So this was the game now. They weren't just trying to erase me. They were baiting me into exposing myself. I stared at the screen, jaw set. They've turned my move into their weapon. I met with a lawyer mid-morning in a small office near the riverfront. The room smelled faintly of leather and stale coffee. Papers sat stacked on his desk. I sat on the opposite side, trying not to appear desperate. He greets me warmly, but eyes me carefully when I mention Raymond's voice memo. His smile falters. They hadn't expected that. He shifts uncomfortably. I realize then, Raymond has allies even among those meant to help. The idea of a fair fight becomes a laughable fantasy. I stand, nod politely, and leave. In my gut, there's a warning. I've underestimated how far they'll go. I stop by Elva's firm unannounced, carrying a return book under my arm. She greets me with practiced sympathy, hugs me like nothing's wrong. She's wearing a new frame certificate on her wall, licensing from a state board I never heard of. I snap a photo with my phone, my hands steady. She whispers, "You'll come around, Wanda. We always do." The words taste like poison wrapped in sugar. The next morning, I attend a women's networking brunch one of my old clients invited me to. Helen Brennan is there, smiling too wide. She asks loud enough for all to hear. "So, have you bounced back from your little trading hobby?" The room tenses. My face tightens. I stand and answer calmly. My little hobby funded my exit strategy. Helen flushes. Later, I dig into public records. Her husband's firm had invested in a venture tied to Raymond's circle, and that venture is under audit now. I breathe deeply. Things are shifting. At home that night, I dig through old voicemail backups. I find a message from my grandmother, recorded years ago. Her voice, "Never let the world decide what you're worth." It's thin, aged, but clear. I replay it twice. I write the phrase on a sticky note and stick it to my laptop. From this point forward, my actions won't be reactions, they'll be deliberate. I take steps quietly. I reset all my passwords. I move files to new platforms no one knows. I send one message to Raymond. Silence isn't compliance, it's strategy. He'll see it soon. I schedule interviews with independent financial blogs under a pen name. I'm not ready to reveal myself fully, but I need my story alive in places he can't control. Later that night, there's a soft knock on my hotel door. I peer through the peephole. Nothing. I open it a crack. On the floor is a thin legal envelope. I pick it up, slide inside. A cease and desist, claiming emotional harm to Raymond's reputation. My eyes narrow. They want war in whispers. I roll up the envelope, tuck it in my bag. Under my breath, "I'll give them an echo they can't bury." I woke to a ping on my phone. A message from an unknown number. "Stop digging, Wanda. You'll regret it." My stomach tightened. This wasn't idle threat. It was warning. I forwarded the message to Tansy. She replied, "Stay calm. I'll log this." Then I began moving assets, out of joint accounts, into a trust no one knew. Silence had shifted. I wasn't afraid. I was calculating. Later, I tried to log into my trading account. Denied. A complaint had been filed under my name, insider trading. I pulled up screenshots of my trades. They'd doctored them, twisted numbers, added false timestamps. Within hours, my reputation on forums cratered. Bots flooded with allegations. This was no accident. This was surgical. I reached out to Ava Tisdale. She met me at a quiet wine bar in Charleston. Dim light, hushed voices. She said, "You're not fighting one person. You're fighting a system that buries people." She introduced me to Eli, a cybersecurity analyst. He began recovering deleted logs, tracing IP addresses. When he found one tied to Elva's assistant and the fake complaint, I clenched my jaw. That night, I returned to the hotel. The door whispered open. Nothing stolen, just a framed photo of me and my grandmother, face down. Someone wanted me to feel small, to feel watched. I asked the hotel staff. No answers. The footage was blurry. Masked figure, 3:17 a.m. I didn't call the police. Not yet. I started drafting a public statement instead. I posted a cryptic tweet. When your silence is filing paperwork for the storm to come. With Ava's help, I drafted an open letter, abuse of power, hushed threats in finance, shared anonymously at first. It gained traction. Journalists reached out. Raymond's legal team, sensing panic, contacted Tansy, not to sue, but to negotiate. Late that night, my phone lit up. Eli's message. Check this. Attached, a time-stamped doc tying Elva to the false complaint. They weren't just attacking me, they were coordinating. I stared at the file. It was never just Raymond. They were all in on it. I decided to step away from every screen for a day. Cell phone off, laptop closed. I walked through Central Park in late autumn, crisp air biting at my cheeks. I carried a notepad. I stopped under oaks, sat on benches, and wrote one line. What am I no longer willing to accept? Under it, I listed silence, manipulation, erasure, fear, betrayal. Memories surfaced, not painful scenes, but milestones. My grandmother's laugh in our kitchen. The moment I first read financial charts, my voice saying, I matter. I remembered Eleanor Roosevelt's quote, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." I whispered it under my breath. It became a mantra. I was no longer playing defense. I was cultivating ground to stand on. By afternoon, I met Ava and Eli in a modest cafe downtown. The sun slanted low outside, dust motes drifting. Ava slid folders across the table, screenshots, banking flows, time-stamped logins. Eli showed a trace linking Elva's assistant IP to the complaint I'd been hit with. Also ties to a shell company called Northgate Inc., where Raymond had stakes. My chest tightened. The pieces were lining up. We compiled an encrypted file. I told Ava to send it to a trusted litigation firm only in case something happens to me. She nodded. We sat silent a while. I felt the change in me. Quiet confidence, purposeful. That evening I set the trap. Using a decoy investment profile I created with open permissions, I posted a false insider tip. I waited. Within hours, it was extracted. I traced the move back to a shared IP address tied to Elva's assistant's workstation. Someone in their camp had taken the bait. That proof alone changed the weight of the game. Corporate espionage, defamation planted. I didn't act immediately. I let it linger. My real account, safe, untouched, showed an uptick in one quietly backed stock. I smiled to myself. They believed they'd broken me. They didn't know I was just getting started. Later, I dug up an old voicemail from my grandmother, buried in Dropbox backups. You don't always have to fight fire with fire, baby girl. Sometimes just being water is enough. I replayed it again and again. Her voice steadied me. I copied the lines of her message into a note on my phone. This became my emotional anchor. Truth, not anger, would be my force. Then I made my public move. Under a pseudonym on Medium, I posted my story. Betrayal, manipulation in finance, the weight women carry. No names yet. The piece got picked up. Messages flooded in. Female investors, whistleblowers, journalists. The ripple spread beyond what I expected. Inside Raymond's circle, messages scrambled. Ava's contact inside his company said panic had set in. They were watching. They were sweating. Just before midnight, I saw a private message flash on my screen. His face replaced my hope with gravity. If you want war, you've got it. I looked back at the screen. I didn't flinch. I smiled. I jolted awake to my phone lighting up. Dozens of missed calls, voicemails from news desks. Wanda Price, comments on alleged leak? My heart pounded. I opened the security app. Alerts flagged suspicious accesses to my decoy profile. Then I checked the headlines. Wanda Price accused in insider scandal. My stomach dropped. The whispers had grown into a roar. They had dragged me into the light. Within hours, I booked a slot on a Houston financial news show. When producers pressed me for proof, I sent metadata tying Elva's IP to the false tip. Tansy and Ava spent the drive helping me map responses, cover traps, avoid missteps. My pulse steadied. I was walking into the storm armed with reason. Once on air, I laid the case bare. I revealed shell company links, fraudulent transfers, and the complaint record that signaled the entire scheme. Elva's eyes betrayed panic under the studio lights. The host faltered. The audience sat stunned. I never raised my voice. I didn't have to. Silence spoke for me. Moments later, Raymond's PR machine roared into life. He denied everything, called my claims a crusade for drama, threatened legal action, and painted himself as wounded. The script wasn't new. I watched it unfold with calm. His denial only amplified the truth. The next day, his lawsuit landed in my hands. Defamation, emotional injury. I countersued for corporate theft, coercion, and misuse of power. Media outlets dissected motions. Blogs spun narratives. Comments ranged from supportive to vicious. I uploaded the full board meeting minutes. Everything was now public, documented, undeniable. That night, just before midnight, an email pinged. Meet me at the garden room, 11 p.m. I have the file that brings them down. No name. No explanation. I slipped on my coat, tucked the flash drive into my pocket, and walked into the dark. The reckoning had begun. The garden room was dim, quiet, almost reverent. I stepped inside, the warmth of the low lighting brushing against the cold weight in my chest. Only 2 other tables were occupied. I scanned the space until I saw her. Mid-40s, blazer too formal for a casual drink, but she looked like someone who'd been carrying secrets for a long time. She stood as I approached. "You don't know me," she said. "But I knew Raymond. I worked under him at his fund. I watched everything." She slid a small flash drive across the table. Her hands trembled. "I stayed quiet for years. But after what you did, I couldn't anymore." I didn't say anything right away. Just looked at the drive. She leaned in. "He didn't just target you. He's stolen, lied, laundered, and someone needs to stop him." I finally met her eyes. "Why now?" She smiled, tired. "Because you didn't run. That was enough for me." I took the drive, stood, nodded. No dramatics, just quiet understanding. Back at home, I sat in the kitchen while the city slept outside. The flash drive held more than I dared imagine. Emails, offshore transfers, internal memos, all in Raymond's handwriting. Evidence of wire fraud, tax evasion, employee intimidation. It was all there. I sent it to my lawyer, forwarded a copy to the media, and blind CC'd the SEC. I included a statement, brief, factual, without embellishment. Then I shut the laptop and went to bed. By noon, the world had changed. News alerts rolled in faster than I could open them. Raymond Barrett arrested in federal sweep. His face plastered across every screen, handcuffed, face pale. Elva resigned shortly after, citing mental exhaustion. I didn't laugh, didn't gloat. I just watched. When the reporters asked for comments, I said, "The truth always costs someone. He just ran out of other people to pay the bill." Later that week, I walked through my neighborhood, past the bookstore I used to cry behind, past the diner where I met Ava after the first court hearing. The town hadn't changed much, but I had, stronger, less afraid. I recorded a video, final one, just me, no makeup, natural light. "This was never about revenge," I said. "It was about not letting the lie win." Hundreds of emails came in. Women, some old enough to be my mother, thanking me. One wrote, "You gave me words I never had the courage to say out loud." I replied, "You're never as alone as you think." Weeks passed. I started saying yes to life again. I funded a mentorship program for girls entering finance. A publisher offered me a deal. I said, "Only if I keep the truth. No editing for drama." My parents called. I didn't ignore it this time. We met at a small cafe. Not everything was fixed, but at least it wasn't broken in silence anymore. Ava and I had dinner one evening. She raised her glass, grinning. "To never doubting our gut again. To trusting it the first time," I said back. Saturday morning. No alarms, no fear, just sunlight filtering through linen curtains. I sat by the window, watered my new bonsai tree. Watched the droplets soak into the soil. A letter arrived. No return address. Inside, a photograph. Raymond shaking hands with a senator I recognized, smiling like nothing had ever happened. Below it, one handwritten line. The real story is just beginning.